9% were candid enough to say that the train left the station and it's been moving pretty quickly ever since. They're just trying to hang on. We asked people, how has their life been, easier or harder versus their expectations? You can see that the first column is how people answer for their personal lives. Second column is how they answer for their professional lives. By and large, life has been a little harder than we thought. In both cases, people were twice as likely or more to answer that life was harder than expected. And it appears that in our personal lives, there have been more surprises than in our professional lives, both good and bad. We knew we couldn't avoid it. It would be
Much of lying on this one.
12% of the people say that they weighed less today than at graduation. That's their story, and they're sticking to it. There will be a weigh-in at the dinner. And while you're, casually putting your arm around your long-lost friends, just kind of rub up.
It's all those antidepressant drugs.
Curious that question. So the self-reported median weight gain is 8.5 pounds, which sounds pretty darn good. Well, I guess we should self-report pretty good results on the weight gain because we're always at the gym. It's amazing that people are performing well at their jobs and having all this time to have kids because it would appear that they're actually in the gym 3 to 4 times a day. The median time spent exercising is 4 hours per week. Let's face it, whether it's per day or per hour, they're equally likely to be exaggerating. I guess people are just embarrassed to admit that they watch Dancing with the Stars. 13% of us say they spend no time watching television. And the median time reported is only 4 hours per week. And what's even more amazing is only 2 respondents, not 2%, but only 2 people in the class would admit to watching more than 36 hours of television per week, which is the average in the United States of America. So we must be busy between work and the gym. We do get time to take vacations. Only 1% of us said that we didn't take any vacation at all last year. And 10% of us said we took more than 6 weeks last year.
What?
This is good for our European colleagues. What was the question again? What percentage of your peak memory capabilities do you still have? Only 11% of us still maintain the fiction that we are. 91% of us were able to put a number on it. 9% answered some sort of other. And I'm just going to take the leap of faith that other is presumably not good. As Allison mentioned, we were intrusive enough to ask people, have you suffered what you consider to be a major medical challenge? And does everyone know what the title of the slide refers to? Once you get to your 25th reunion, from that reunion and all reunions going forward, you're in the fall, not the spring of the year. So I think we've passed the tipping point when this number is probably not going to get better over time. And 26% said that they had suffered a major challenge. And as Allison mentioned, if you read the essays in the book, some of them are very heart-rending. They'll give you pause to consider. Yes, we are in therapy, but our self-esteem is good enough that we are not willing to pay for a facelift. 41% of us have hired a personal trainer. And of course that makes sense because we're always at the gym. And so not only do we have a sound body, but we're willing to pay for a sound mind. 42% of us have been to a therapist, and only 7% have been to a cosmetic surgeon. There's the answer. 17% have been to a defense attorney, and consistent with Sanjeev's answer by the divorce attorneys, as defense cases wind forward, they don't seem to have spiraled out of control to the point where we had to hire either a private detective or a bail bonds person. 15% of us have hired a divorce attorney, which is pretty darn close to the 14% of us who have actually been divorced. So I think the answer is, if things got to the point where you hired a divorce attorney, you probably pulled the trigger. Unfortunately, even though times have been tougher than we thought, things haven't been so bad that we've spent too much time consulting with bankruptcy attorneys. We're busy, we know that, so we have to hire people to help us work through life. 36% of us have hired a live-in nanny. 43% have hired a full-time but not live-in nanny. And if you add those two people and then back out the people that answered yes to both, 57% of the class, more than half of us, have either hired a live-in or a full-time nanny. You compare that to the percentage of the class with at least one child of 90%. So basically, if you even had one kid, you had almost a 2/3 chance of hiring full-time help to help you raise your kid. If you had 2 kids, you had an extremely high chance of throwing in the towel and hiring full-time help. And I guess consistent with being in the fall reunions now, we are starting to think ahead to getting our estates sorted out. This is one of the most interesting slides in the presentation. We're busy, we're stressed, our lives are not going quite as well as we thought they would. What do we want more of? Well, I want to thank people for taking the time to answer this question very carefully, because you'll see that people put a lot of time into the question insofar as the answers are all internally consistent. You were just as likely to answer any given option as your highest priority as you were to list it in your top 3 choices in order. In other words, the answers are very internally consistent with each other. Our top choices are more time, more health, and more peace of mind. And interestingly enough, choice number 4 was children, which may make sense given that we had fewer children than we thought, and there'll be a slide later on which will refer back to that, more foreshadowing. So take another look at the other entries on the list here and see if you come to the same conclusion that I did. I guess we're having a lot of kids because the sex is good, because only 15% of us really want more of it. HBS on our classmates. We are very happy we got the fat envelope. 48% of us say coming here was one of the best decisions of our lives. Only 13% of us were so moved to say that it was a responsible move professionally, but didn't have a big impact on their life. And 3% of us say, yes, when I meet people who went to Stanford, I am secretly envious. Compare those numbers to the answers that people gave when they were actually here. 12% of us at the time, in 1986, said we were not enjoying ourselves. Another 12% said, well, I'm not feeling great about it, but I'm not going to commit myself to an answer. So about a quarter of us were ambivalent about being here at the time, and seems like, for the most part, things have shaken out reasonably well. We asked people what was most valuable about HBS to them, and they gave answers which I think HBS will like, as opposed to answers like, It was something to work into cocktail party conversations in my 20s. We actually said it was the ongoing professional credential, it was education, and it was help getting a job right after business school. And I thought that was probably the three answers that HBS would most want us to answer. Interestingly enough, only 6% gave as their top answer a network of alumni that they could interact with professionally. And as we get to the survey answers at the bottom, one of the most common answers that people gave was that they wish they had networked more. So we know that HBS has changed our lives. How much? Do you think your life has been materially different from what it might have been had you gone to a different business school? Looks like we do think our life is materially different, and only 5% of us don't want to think of their lives without HBS. I guess if you were one of the 14% that married somebody that was here, well, gee, I guess the number should probably be higher than 5%. If you had not been admitted to Harvard, what would you have done? 27% would have attended some unidentified business school, but of those who indicated a preference, Stanford was the clear choice. And I'm thinking about putting this into some kind of academic paper that will compete with Business Week and other business school rankings. And 4% of us would have kept applying to HBS until they realized just how fantastic it was. Although we are the marrying kind, oddly enough, we don't seem to go to each other's weddings all that much, especially considering that the majority of us got married within 5 years of graduation. How many class weddings have you attended? 23% haven't attended a single classmate's wedding, and the median number was only 2. So we don't go to each other's weddings, but we do hang out together, just not at weddings. How many classmates have you seen in the last 5 years? And even though there are substantial minority answers for 0, 1, and 2, you can see the answer skews heavily toward 6 through 10 and 11 or more. And the median number of classmates seen socially is 5. So we do spend time with each other. Although, while we hang out, we may not be best friends forever. This question was, of your 3 closest friends, how many were classmates at HBS? And the median answer is 0. So we socialize. We wish we networked more, but let's not get carried away. Now, as I mentioned, there is one significant skew in the answers, and that is the respondents skew heavily toward attendees. If you answered the question, you were almost 7 times more likely to attend the reunion, and we'll see why that's relevant in a few more seconds. We were about 50-50 to attend any reunion, and given where we are geographically, that seems pretty impressive. The median number of reunions attended so far is 3 out of 5. Okay, let's go on to the safe topics. How would you characterize yourself politically? You gave people the option of liberal, moderate, conservative, or the ever-popular fiscally conservative, but socially liberal, and people jumped all over that. Nobody was so right-wing as to characterize themselves as Glenn Beck, although we did have one classmate who thought himself as another Al Franken. So if you were socially liberal but fiscally conservative, what did that mean? Well, for us, it meant you voted for Obama in 2008. An overwhelming number of people voted for Obama compared to Palin, of the people who actually did vote. Some people were candid enough to admit that, yes, at age 51, I'm not yet registered to vote. 9% are not Americans, so we had to back them out of the answers. Here's part of the answer, I think, why Obama won 3 years ago. 0% of the self-identified liberals voted for McCain, but 7% of the self-identified conservatives voted for Obama. And I think That's a big part of what happened in 2008. In our class, those who characterize themselves as